Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the chat. We are your lovely hosts. I am Prince Michael. We have the stepologist herself, Regina Platt, and we have Mr. Tokyo himself, the man, the myth, and the legend, y'all. We are not joined today by our pretty girl that wears 20 pearls. She had some personal things that she had to take care of on today. She just got her a new mansion, but I ain't one to gossip. That's just what I heard. Okay. Anywho, so we are going to go ahead and just jump right into it because we wanted to talk about this. I'm sure that everyone has seen it. Everyone has heard about it. The shooting that happened with all of those young lives that were taken. And I know that a lot of people right now, emotions are high. People are talking about gun control. I know that there are a lot of people that are talking about the husband that went to the vigil to pay respects to his wife, and then he ended up having a heart attack. He passed. So I just wanted to just go ahead and just open the conversation up at this current time. What are your thoughts? Where are you with everything? And Tokyo, we're going to just start with you. What are your thoughts? Like what's going through your mind right now, knowing about the shooting that just happened with this?
My deepest condolences for those who have lost. It's a tragedy that nobody will ever get used to. And I think for me, all I can say is that I fear for what this does to the psyche on a large scale, because I know what humans do in a state of fear. And I know what can be done when logic is not followed and when people are taken advantage of due to fear. And so I just hope that we're able to not only come together, but really be what's the word I'm looking for? Just realistic in solutions, despite how barbaric they may be. Because at the end of the day, good people, more good people is better than bad people and a bunch of sheep.
You know, I appreciate that, TC. I know that typically when things like this happen, had this person still been alive, then this would have been phrased as the person was not mentally stable. This would have been phrased as this person has had a history of mental issues, mental health issues. That's always the narrative of what happens. It's a mental health thing. Yeah, they were not in their right frame of mind. And apparently he was bullied at school. And this is why I tell people it's so important to pay attention to what your children are doing. But he was bullied at school. And then he ended up taking his aggression, his anger out on elementary school students. And not just the students, but teachers alike. And there's one little girl, I haven't checked any of the recent reports, but it was one little girl who was in, I think she was in the ICU. And she was still fighting for her life because she was like one of the only people that survived the shooting. And I was like, the story that this little girl will be able to tell when she is an adult. But I think that for me, my biggest issue, it had nothing to do with the shooting itself, because let's face it, every time it's an election year, there's always a shooting that happens. I don't know if you all pay, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything like that, so let me just throw that out there. But every year, when every time it's an election year, there's always a mass shooting that happens. And then this is when gun control and all of this stuff starts happening and things like that. How in the world was this boy able to get that type of weapon in the first place? I mean, in order for a woman to be able to go out and say that she wants to get her tubes tied, so to speak, she has to go and come back in order for them to even do so. And I just don't understand, how is it that you have more to say about a woman and her body? Right now, we even have Roe versus Wade. We talked about that. That's going back on the ballot. And you care more about what a woman does with her body than to actually have psych evaluations done for people when they're getting these type of weapons. How in the hell was this boy even able to get one of those weapons? I mean, excuse my French, but how was he even able to do that? So I think that my biggest issue is the fact that they have nothing in place where these people are not able to get guns like that, because let's face it, that was an act of terrorism. But it will not be seen as that. It will just be seen as, oh, he was bullied. Oh, he was this, he was that. Okay, well, and the only reason that people are not going as hard on him at the moment is because, one, he's dead. And if he were alive, it would be a completely different story. So, Regina, I want to ask you, because I see your head nodding. What are your thoughts right now on this?
Well, I think we have to speak to the culture of our nation right now. And when I say speak to the culture of our nation, there has been shootings all over the nation. And we know that media picks out what they choose to allow us to see at a larger realm. Those things that are going to get them good advertisement, that thing that is going to call out the president, government, and they choose so that it can make them look good. But in reality, any one shooting is a tragedy. Any one shooting is a crisis, because it's not only affecting the person that was shot, but or the shooter, but it's affecting the communities, it's affecting family, it's affecting our nation. And so one of the things when I look at the piece about schooling, I've been looking and researching into peaceful schools, right? And peaceful schools focuses on how to prepare those people who are around, the innocent bystanders, those who are around, to get them proactively prepared. Not only that, to proactively prepare the teaching staff, the administration, to have everything in line and in order. So when a crisis comes, they're prepared for the crisis. First off, in the hood, we lock doors to the schools, right? In the hood. But in other areas, the doors are not locked up like that, right? And we say we lock the doors in those schools, right, to keep the children in the school safe, which we normally put them under scrutiny and attack as they're going in, like they're going to jail every day. But are we really making sure that our children are not being touched by things as they're walking out, or our teachers not being touched by things as they're walking out to school? So I looked at the peaceful intervention framework, and I'm really working with some of them right now. The makers, actually, the guy that originally with Meningers came across with that program, he recently passed. And so speaking with today, I met with one of his granddaughters and his son, who was actually actively moving around in the districts in this county before the budget was cut, doing the teachings, and just sitting down with them to see how I can connect my restorative practice piece, and we connect that to the peaceful intervention framework, peaceful schools framework, so that we can come together to form, right, a clear foundation to be able to take into schools and to communities to do the work that needs to be done. Now, the other fact that I look at as well, again, let's tie back into culture. What is the culture right now? I'm laying in bed the other morning. There's gunshots going off. It's like 3:00 in the morning. This is not one-way gunshots. This is both-way gunshots. And when we think about that, and I know two young men who were I had connections with recently just passed. One of them was found by his car, and they were quickly trying to call it a suicide. He was found dead by the car. We haven't heard if they're researching to find out if it was a suicide or not a suicide. If they're looking for that person, we're not finding out anything, right? And just imagine a level of trauma from the young people who have found that, on top of I'm wearing a shirt, of my little cousin, and I call her niece, who ended up dying by the hand of suicide. But it wasn't just the suicide, right? It was the trauma. It was the trauma. It was this responsibility that we're given to young people to hold this in instead of getting this out. And so they're seeing this, like you said, every year when there's election taking place, when we need a destructive distraction to happen, we are aligning, or a new song comes out, right? A new dance comes out, and everybody's moving to this dance tune, but nobody's tapped into the ground of what's moving and what's happening around us. When we talk about Roe versus Wade, when we talk about the new, the movement that's happened of who they want to bring into office currently, we got to think about, when we talk about, I know here, and only 30% of children or less who are at age to vote between the ages of 18, at that 18-year of graduation, 30% of this district is our young people are voting. Somebody help me. Why is only 30%? That means there's a whole 70% that we haven't even tapped into that need to be registered and out to vote, because the power belongs to them. And let's talk about these these weapons that are coming out, and they're moving out. First off, somebody's making money off of it.
Yeah.
If we're going to continue to move the way they're moving in this nation, it has to be the 1%ers who are getting paid off of this, because 1%ers don't let those under the 1% get that extra money in. And so this is a top-down approach that is happening. And the reason I say it's a top-down approach, because when you are in leadership, you have to think like a leader and move like a leader. You have to step out like a leader and be willing to say no. And saying no does not mean that I believe that we should be able to carry, but I don't believe that I need a weapon that's supposed to be used in wartime to be here on U.S. soil, to be walking around with me on a daily basis. I'm not okay with that. And something needs to be done, and something will be done. But the only way it's going to get done if we as citizens understand that it's our job to make government move. We elect them in. And so what they vote for is what we allow to be voted for, or we don't speak up for it.
I think that, so for me, I know that anytime that a shooting happens, the very first thing that happens is people start talking about gun control. But it only happens when there is a mass shooting that is broadcasted on television. It's almost like when Trayvon Martin happened. When Trayvon Martin was murdered in cold blood, because that's what it was. If you don't agree with that, go blame and tell your mama. But anyway, so when Trayvon Martin was murdered, what happened is you had people that were saying like, oh, Black Lives Matter. We need to band together. We need to do this. And then there's always this period of silence that happens. And then after that period of silence, then there's another murder that happens. Let's fast forward. We got to George Floyd, and everyone was outraged. They're like, because this guy didn't do anything. He was not angry, as people say. He wasn't resisting. He wasn't doing anything. He was down. He was cuffed. Like, there was no reason that he should have actually been murdered. So if this guy went free, then it was going to be an issue. So the same thing happens when there's a mass shooting. When there's a mass shooting, everyone talks about gun control. My thing is, guns are amoral. So guns are neither good or bad. It's the person holding the gun that yields that answer. So if a person holding a gun has a motive of saying, you know what, when I get this gun, I'm going to go kill this person. Okay, now you're in a situation where the gun is still the exact same. The person holding it has a different outcome. Our individuals that are in the armed forces, they are trained with these type of weapons to defend our country. So once again, guns are amoral. I believe that the problem is that we do not have laws in place to be able to give these people, to make sure that these people are mentally stable. Because, I mean, even though that is normally phrased that way in the media when a white person goes out and they commit these acts of terrorism, you have to have there are some screws that have to be missing for you to go and shoot elementary school students. Like, these are babies. They haven't even gotten the opportunity to experience their life just yet. They are just starting out. And I guess because I have a nephew that just turned 10, I also have other nieces and nephews, and I look and I'm like, this could have been them. And I think, like, I have no remorse, and it's so, probably it's so bad to say, but I have no remorse for him. It's more so I feel horrible for the parents that lost their children, because when a parent drops their child off to school, they are believing that their child is safe. And I'm pretty sure those teachers did everything that they could to protect those babies. I'm pretty sure they did.
I love that you tapped into that piece on when we dropping off our children, the belief that they'll be safe. Me as a grandmother and grandmother, I have one child who is turning 22 this year that drives to campus last year in college. And just thinking about the fact of she's going to a campus where it's been identified racist issues, different scare tactics have taken place. And the ideal of her driving down there and me at points not being able to have contact with her when she's in lab or in classes. So especially when things like this happen, it makes me beyond, uncomfortable. And thinking about Naomi, going off, and when she goes into class, and it's like, I want to know if someone's bullying you. I want to know if someone said something that day that made you feel uncomfortable. But even when I thought about those babies, I thought about how many kids in minority communities are killed at the hand of a shooter, a gunshot going off. This kid had nothing to do with the issue, and they're laying dead in their yards or on their porches or on playgrounds. And we never hear it pop up in media and conversations being had about it, and or the kid that goes missing in these neighborhoods. So some of that stuff, like, as I'm seeing this on TV and I'm feeling this in my body, and me being a fixer, right, the protector, I'm looking like, what can I do? How can I assist? What do I need to move, right? For us to have a solution that is formulated in unison with other community partners who are willing to do the work and move this forward. But it's disgusting. It's disgusting. And then we think about the idea of teachers having guns, right? We all know what the school to prison pipeline looks like.
Mm-hmm.
From kindergarten, kids are already preschool, kindergarten already being like programmed that they ain't gonna make it, that ain't nothing, and they're going into the prison system. And now we give a teacher that we may not have been in trained access to a gun, who is already doing work. And I love educators. This is not for all educators. It's about a system that they are working in that allows them not to see value in all students. And we watch this and just imagine them getting nervous, and they haven't been trained. So if teachers are going to have guns, are going to be armed, if that's something that it comes down that they feel need to be done, there needs to be laws and stipulations that outline when's the right time, in training and development, not that faulty, get online and read this and look at. I'm talking about actual tactful training that they need to be quarterly going into and practicing being in a toxic emergency situation where they have to go through and practice it as soldiers would practice it. I really feel like if we're going to give them a gun, we need to train them and send them in training and let them sit and go through this so they understand what happens when they make the decision. TC, what's that look? Speak.
Your microphone's distorting. I don't know if it's me. It's me?
Mm-hmm.
Because even now your microphone's distorted. That's very strange. Am I coming through okay?
You're coming through fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, you guys sound like robots right now. But so my business mentor just brought up a article, and it wasn't posted on the news. Woman stops attacker from shooting into a graduation crowd with an AR-15. Didn't make it on the news, but a perfect example of what I was saying earlier in a very soft way, which is good people, more good people out there being able to take action against bad people or perpetrators or cells is what some of us call them, people who are designed to operate at a certain time frame to make things happen for a certain agenda. But I do agree with you. 1 second.
I don't know. I guess I'm trying to figure out, like, an AR-15 is not even a regular gun. That's an assault rifle, if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
How is it that a civilian is even able to get one of those? Go ahead, TC. I'm ready for you. I'm ready. Cause y'all see you shaking your head, honey. I see you shaking your head, TC.
No. I'm shaking my head at this dumb train. It's just making it hard to hear. And I can't really share because it decided to come through the time that I'm trying to share. But what were you saying about the AR-15?
No, I was saying that, like, I don't understand how is it that a civilian is even able to get an AR-15? Like, an AR-15 is an assault rifle. So how is
it can be called an assault rifle, but it's not. It can be a hunting rifle. Like, I can go buy an AR-15 right now at Cabela's, or any type of assault-looking rifle. But it's how it's used. Semi-automatics or 3-round burst weapons aren't. They're okay to have. But when it's fully automatic, that's a modification that's done at home. So that's where this issue happens. That's where these become assault rifles, is when it's a fully automatic. But it's never sold that way. They're modified.
Okay. So check this. So recently I was with someone. I won't give any identifying information because I don't want to put them on blast. But I was with someone and they asked me to go to this store with them. I had no idea that it was an arms store. I had no idea. So I went in and I saw all these different guns, and guns don't appeal to me. I know a lot of people. I have an uncle. He's one of my youngest uncles, and he loves them. Why? I have no idea. I'm just like, okay. To him, it's like getting a new pair of shoes. Like, oh, let me show you this one. Boy, I can care less. Go ahead on somewhere now. And so guns don't appeal to me. But anyway, so I was in the store with this person, and he went in there. He already had a gun. He had the gun on him. And he ended up saying, oh, I'm actually just going to buy another one. And the only thing they asked him for was his ID. They typed his information in. I don't know what they were running. I guess they were just doing like a background check or something like that, just to make sure that he wasn't, I guess, wanted or something like that. And afterwards, he swiped his card and he bought it. They did no mental evaluation. They didn't check to make sure that this boy was not, this boy or this girl was not suicidal. They didn't check for any of that. And I'm just like, how is it okay to just go and just buy a gun? Like,
the time that you apply, that's kind of like, done. Once you're in the system, it's a lot easier to purchase a gun. The first time applying for a gun and getting a gun, that's where you run through all the hoops. Now the psych evaluation, probably a good thing to add on if there's any red flags within somebody's background, or, for instance, a lot of people will probably bark at this, but having, I don't know what it would take, but having access to see what prescriptions or medication people are taking, that also plays a big account into it as well, because that's going to play a part into the psych evaluation. What medications are you taking? For instance, again, my business mentor, he was taking a medicine for, for a pain or something like that for his leg or whatever, and it made him kind of aggressive. It made him kind of like in a not manic, but just like more quick to snap at somebody. right? And he's just like, yo, I don't like this. Like this doesn't make me feel good. I'm not about it. Change my meds, right? So depending on what somebody's taking, could also add to a red flag or uh, just not qualifying to own a gun at that time of using that medication.
And
at
that's
that
what I was going to say. At the timing, because there are meds that I've seen people get on at timings, and maybe doing that, they run across, as they're telling you about the pharmaceuticals, they're running across it. Suicide, maybe ideations, and they have all these lists. And so it's, and then they'll be taking like 3 and 4 different types of meds that have suicide ideations. And I'm going, why would you take all this at one time? What were you going through that you may not? But the other factor is, I've seen as we step into 2020, I think that was a point, and we were going through COVID down here at the academy, in a couple other places. I seen the stores like packed out, like people were buying as many weapons as they could buy. But the other factor I can tell you is, I did not see a lot of people of color in the stores at those time periods, where those weapons, I'm talking about buying up bullets in stacks, just, and I'm going, what is about to happen? What's going on right now that it looks like we're going to war in this nation? Trump.
I think that in terms of stuff like that, I will never deny a person the right to bear arms. I will never deny that right, because I truly do believe in that. I do believe that, especially for people that live by themselves, that it's only them. They need that extra layer of protection and things like that. I understand. I'll never deny that. However, I do believe that there has to be some way to to monitor this, because the way that guns are moving in this country, it's almost as if they're moving at the rate that illegal drugs used to move. I mean, illegal drugs used to move in this country like that, honey, but illegal drugs used to move because the people that had money brought the drugs in. The people that had money brought the drugs in, and then they started moving them around. And I think it's the same thing with these guns. Now, I can't say if whether or not that's factual or not. That is solely based on my opinion about the fact of how the guns are moving right now. But that's just the way that I think about them. I think that they are moving at a rate that is alarming, because every time that you turn around, people are buying more and more guns. Go ahead, Tokyo.
It might seem like they're moving more. They're moving at the same rate. The issue is that social media is blasting it and putting it in your face. So now, for instance, and I'm not trying to change the subject. There's people called slideshow guys that go out and do donuts in a freaking intersection, and it's really dumb. That's been happening for quite some time. Hell, I used to show up at street races and do donuts for people just for fun and then dip out, or do it at a gas station and dip out. But social media is putting it in front of us, or people are recording like we didn't have the ability to record back in 2005, right? So now it's in front of us. We're not reading it in a newspaper, so it seems like the activity has increased. It hasn't. Now, I'm not going to deny, and I will agree with you on this. I want to say it's like one to every American. That's like 1 or 2 guns, maybe, or yeah, it might be 2 guns or something like that. But again, I can't help but to think that, like the example I was just saying, there's an article brought up. Random lady, stopped a man with an AR-15 from shooting into a crowd of a graduation party, right?
Or is that the way that the media has actually just said it?
That wasn't the media. That was hidden because it didn't follow the agenda of the media. That's what I'm saying. So there are articles, there are things that are happening where good people are stopping bad things from happening. But hell, I mean, there you go.
Yeah, I wanted to say this piece too.
I don't even want to see that, but I appreciate it.
I wanted to say this piece. Guns have been moving throughout the United States for years now, for decades now, and they move in areas. They get picked up somehow or another. They come back out on the streets, being disposed in communities of color, low suppressed communities, where a lot of times those guns, where you see someone was killed, you find that that gun already had bodies to it and
Come on
connected
now.
to something previous. And so when we talk about this, people selling guns out there, I know people that can get you almost anything you want.
Come on now.
Without going into a store or going into a system. And so we're saying, like, we're us talking about stipulations being put on the gun law, all this stuff. It's really like stipulations need to be put on men and women who are choosing. And as Tokyo just pointed out, there's 2 guns per person. Well, I don't own a gun. So what person carrying the guns that belong to me and my children and that are connected to my family? Because we don't own guns. And the reason I don't own a gun, because I've seen so many people die at the hands of a weapon, the misuse of a weapon in communities because of trauma. Number one, most of them that I'm finding out, you find this trauma that's connected or behind the individual that's pulling the trigger or behind society at that period of time, or an overload of depression and stresses. You see all these dang things. And for me, myself, like, I've had a point in my life where I could hold a gun and have a gun at any time. But what I found was it's a dysregulated, a brokenness of power that instead of sitting down and having a conversation and letting somebody really know what's going on with you, you're at the point where you're ready to blow somebody's head off. And that one point, that one movement, that one decision doesn't, like I said at the beginning, does not just tear up our lives, but it tears up everybody's lives that were connected to the lives that were lost or the shooter's life. So it's all the way around. It's unfolding, and it doesn't unfold just a ripple effect that just hits this generation, but it's touching several generations. And it's like pain beget pain. And so my thing is, like, people as individuals need to step the hell up and make a decision of valuing our children's lives, valuing our elders. Like, we just talked about the young people dying, but we didn't bring up Buffalo, all those people at almost 50 and over that died. Because somebody pulled a trigger, went in and pulled the trigger, and they were people of color. We didn't bring that up. That's not going out and just being hit. This man drove hours. He went hours to go in, studied the Black church, studied the movement of these people, and went in. And this just happened right before this happened.
Yeah.
And it did come across the television. But how long did it hold a strong bit of body? Somebody had to go do something somewhere else. And it subtracted the energy from all those elders that were lost.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that.
Just recently.
You didn't know that, Tokyo?
No.
So I think that when stuff like, and I remember I was watching this show. It was called Scandal. And y'all know me and Shonda Rhimes, we go way back. She just don't know who I am, but me and her go way back. Okay, she my friend in my head. And I was watching this show, and in the show, Olivia, who is played by Kerry Washington. Kerry Washington is so nice. Shout out to Kerry Washington. I met her when I was in college. She's really short. But anyway, in the show, Olivia said, we have to make sure that this becomes America's daughter, that this is America's problem in the show. And basically, it was like they had to paint this girl that was missing as if she was the most innocent person in the entire world. She's so pure. And oh my gosh, my heart goes out to the family. And I started watching that, and I was like, because my grandmother taught me something a long time ago, and my grandma old. So my grandma is very wise. She said, anytime you want to hide something from someone, do it right in front of their face, and they'll never know it because you're doing it right in front of them. So they'll miss that. So the reason that you probably didn't see it, Tokyo, is because, once again, that did not fit what they wanted to sell. What they wanted to sell was this. And it's bad to say, but the media controls a lot of people's feelings. The news controls the way that you think. We are wired for negativity. And that's just the way it is. We are all wired for negativity. If the news was all about getting on TV and talking about how beautiful the day is getting ready to be, there's zero chance of rain. Let me tell you about our scholarship that just happened. And let me tell you about someone who saved someone else's life from choking. And let me get on here and give you so much positive energy. It wouldn't sell. And nobody would watch that. People want the drama. They want to hear that. I remember I told my mom one day, because this is beforehand, my mom would literally get up and she would turn the news on, and the news would be on all day long. And God forbid if you touched it. So with that being said, I wanted to ask you guys, because I remember Regina brought this fact up. This is an election year. So do you believe that there should be something on this ballot that has to deal with gun control? I want to start with you, Tokyo.
Can you ask that question one more time? I got another train coming by.
I said, I want to know, do you believe, because this is an election year, that there should be some type of and now he done made me lose my train of thought. Do you believe that there should be any type of gun control on the ballot for this year? If you ask me to repeat this question again, I swear, oh God, I'm gonna throw this hammer at you.
I heard you. I had the phone to my ear to make sure. I'm just preparing myself for the backlash.
Hold on, let me get ready. Okay. For those listeners, I just picked up my hammer for Mr. Tokyo. I love cactus.
I don't think gun control needs to be on the ballot, because it's not a matter of controlling how we have access to guns. As you stated earlier, had he had been alive, he would have been labeled as he's got mental issues. These are scapegoats. These are excuses. At the end of the day, I'm going to go ahead and say it. It is an agenda timed, just as you pointed out, at the time of an election, because there's a group of people that do want to control the accessing of guns and slowly erode our access to them in order to demilitarize America's people, so that when they decide to move forward on certain plans and agendas, we are not able to protect our homes or families. Right now, we have a system where our voting has power, because we're able, should they decide to make voting not count, take actual real power against those said beat. And so if we lose the control of having free access to weapons, or paint a negative narrative on access to weapons, then we begin to paint a bad picture on those who own guns, whether or not you're in a good mental state or not. And one of the things that came into my mind that I wanted to ask you guys, but you kind of answered my question earlier when we were talking about schools in the urban community. How come these shootings never happen in a black school? They're always in a white school, a white elementary school. Why is that? But like I said, you kind of answered my question, Regina. I'm open to hear what you have to say.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Tokyo.
Take it to him, girl.
So within this nation, Black children, Latino children are dropping daily. These shootings are happening within these communities. There is a slower response to it. There is a lack of reaction to outline a plan for it. And it's blamed on the parents. It's treated as though this is a norm. Death by the hand of a weapon, death by the hand of abuse, death, by the hands of neglect is never a norm. But in inner city schools, in impoverished neighborhoods, in food desert neighborhoods, there are things that are made to be the norm. But when we look at areas where this is abnormal then we say, oh my, I can't believe this is happening. We don't give voice or name to the young men and women who have been strucken down. And when I say young men and women, I'm talking about before the age of 5. I'm not even talking about between 5 and 10, 5 and 15, 5 and 20. I'm talking about all these ages that we're still naming out are ages of brain development still taking place up until 25, a little over 25. The brain is not even fully developed. So these are still children who are dying. Whether if an 18-year-old pulls the trigger and we outline, right, we charge them as an adult, but we know that the brain was not developed, but we give them the highest amount. And then in these other areas, we do this big hit and say, oh my God, he was just dealing with so much mental illness and there was such an attack on him. And I just can't believe it. He has such great parents and they've always been there supporting him and there. But damn it, when you look at that kid that grew up in that neighborhood where we're still talking about slave syndrome, right? Where they're still dealing with the traumatic issues from slavery, where they're still dealing with the traumatic issues of abandonment, where they're still dealing with the traumatic issues of drug and alcohol abuse within the neighborhood, where they're still dealing with a lack of resources within neighborhoods. But we look at that kid and we don't see them, but we can see the kid who is in middle class or above America and say, we should have been there. Well, damn it, we need to be there for all of them, and we need to consistently. And hold on, TC, because you can't stop the movement right now because the mic will not drop. Let's move up to this. When we talk about, I am with Moms on Demand, Moms Against Gun Violence. So when we talk about moms being against gun violence, as a mother, as a leader in my community, I cannot say that I would not vote for something to happen to be put on this upcoming ballot. But I'm not going to say that I'm going to say, no, he can't have a gun, she can't have a gun, this. But what I will say is we need to make sure that guns are being locked up. We need to make sure that mental health evaluations are being done, and we need to make sure that there's a consistent plan of locking doors. There was a man back in the 60s, and this man was raping people all over the country, women all over the country, and he was going in and out of buildings, just tearing into women. And they asked him the question, what would have helped? And he said if they would have locked the door. If they would have locked the door. So sometimes in these schools, we set this system up in neighborhoods of brokenness and not everywhere. And we allow people to get in just because they look nice. And they get in and they destroy something. And then we're going, well, what happened? Well, what happened was you didn't govern and make sure those children were covered when they was released to you by their parents to stay safe. And I'm not going to continue to, TC go ham. But you can come on and jump on in here. Because what I'm saying is we owe those children, we owe society when we step into leadership that we're going to make bold decisions that all may not agree with, but we got to do what's best for the people as a whole.
Well, and I, with all respect, I definitely agree with you on those individual bases. But the question was about a mass shooting. So my thing is, why? Because you're right. On a mass shooting basis, the middle high income earning kid, oh my gosh, he's mentally unstable, mass shooting. But that was not addressed in the urban community. There's no mass shooting in the urban community. It's individual basis.
There are. remember, mass shootings is they calculated at the number that they want to hit it at. But if you have so many kids that are dying, and that's what makes it mass. They choose a number, and if it's over that number, they call it a mass shooting. But if think about this in a community, if you have 10 bodies dropping, 15 bodies dropping, just bodies dropping back to back who are in connection with that school, it was that not a mass shooting, regardless of if it took place.
Got to be timing. Mass shooting is based on timing. If right now I'm at a coffee shop that's closed, but
and that's why so many kids are being dropped.
Now hold on,
you miss over it because
right
you're
now,
seeing that if it's just together.
Right now, I'm at a coffee shop. Somebody could drive by here on the street, shoot me. Mind you, I'm by Grandville. It doesn't matter. I'm in an area that's okay. But say there is already a couple of murders that have happened in the month of May. So then I make murder number 5. So by your definition, there could have been a mass shooting in the month of May, but they're individual bases. Now, across from me is a beach volleyball place. Now, somebody goes there with one weapon and kills 30 people at once. By definition, that is a mass shooting. And that is what is not happening in an urban community. In fact, there's a place downtown that has been redeveloped for urban people, the Kemper Arena facility, which is like they do basketball and stuff like that. It's really cool, right? It gives them an outlet. Nobody's going in there and shooting up a bunch of black kids, right? So my thing is, my question still stands. Why aren't they shooting on a mass level over 10 at once?
Okay, let me jump in here real quick. Let me give y'all some little insights from the hood. Okay, so I grew up in Miami, where in Miami things are not always what they seem. I grew up in an area that's not too far from a place that's always on the First 48. Yeah, you guys know that show, The First 48. Yeah, the one that actually, yeah, you've never heard of The First 48, where you've heard of that, right, Tokyo? No? Okay, so basically The First 48 is a show that deals with murders, like homicides and all of this stuff, right? And so it's very well known. It's a very well known show, and I believe it comes on A&E, if I'm not mistaken. I think it comes on there. But anyway, so the area that it's always on the news, always on The First 48, is what we call, it's in Liberty City. It's called the Poke and Bean Projects, not the pork and beans, the poke and beans, or the beans is what we call it. And see, you're laughing, but you're laughing, but
I'm sorry.
I know. The name is humorous. However, that is what it's colloquially called, the beans. So it's interesting because that area, it is so impoverished, and there's a direct correlation to when you look at areas that are impoverished versus crime. So areas that are impoverished always seem to have more crime, because when you take away the resources, you take away a person's ability to be able to provide for their families. When you take away a man's ability to provide for their families, you're always going to be able and be backed against a wall with more things happening, which is one of the reasons why, if you look, so by definition of what you just said, that area has shootings that happen almost daily. However, going to the definition of what Regina just said, because it does not fit the number, it does not get accounted as a mass shooting because of that. Now, this is an area that when I tell you, the people will give you the shirt off their back. They're very sweet. They're very nice. They are hardworking. And this is an area, this is a community that is really old school. So this community, if they see somebody, Tokyo, I'm going to tell your mama that you weren't in school, boy. If you don't get your... But that's that area. If they're going into a school and you look like you're out of place, oh, what you doing? Who are you coming to get? Who are you coming here for? Because you look out of place. I remember I had just gotten, I had to give up my apartment that I had, and we needed somewhere to go and to just crash. This is in Daytona. And everyone that meets me says I have this air about me, like I run the place, quote unquote, like I just own and command the attention, right? So I told a friend of mine, his name is Sam. I call him my cousin. And I told him, I said, hey, I said, do you want to go to the pool? He was like, the pool? How are we going to go to a pool? I said, don't worry about that. Do you want to go? Yes or no? He goes, yeah. I said, great. We're going to go to the pool in the Crown Plaza and we're going to pretend like that we're guests. And he goes, how? I said, just follow my lead. So we walked in and I handed him my phone and I said, just keep up. And he goes, okay. I said, make sure that you schedule my 12 o'clock and let them know that I'm canceling that because my time is very valuable. Keep up. Okay. So I'm talking to him and the people are looking at me like, oh, let me just move to, I'm so sorry, sir. I'm so sorry. I was like, you're fine. Keep up. Okay. So no, I'm going to the pool and let them know that I'm taking the rest of the day out. I made it seem as if I'm just this important person. No one wanted to stop and ask me anything. I was not even a guest of that hotel, but they didn't ask me anything. They even validated our dang on parking, honey. And I wasn't even a guest of the hotel. Oh, and what room are you in? I just asked you to validate my parking. Why do you need to know what room I'm in? And you're asking me that in front of all of these people. I don't need them to know what room I'm in. Do you know who I am? You know what? Never mind. Thank you. No. I'm so sorry. No, it's okay. I can validate. You see what I'm saying? All because I fit the mold. I look like I belong there. And that's what happens when you go outside of these urban communities. When you're in an urban community, we know who's supposed to be where. So if, let's say, prime example, if you went to Charles R. Drew, which is a elementary school in Liberty City, they know that you ain't supposed to be coming into Drew because you don't look like nobody that's coming through there. Not damn person. So if I saw you going in there, I would be looking like, who is this? This brother look like he out of place. Like, what he doing coming in here? But at these other schools, they don't do that. Oh, well, he looks like he belongs. He looks like he belongs. That's one of the main reasons. Like when I was in elementary school, the elementary schools, we had security that was there, and you couldn't even get past to go anywhere. My nephew goes to a charter school, and the school that he's in, you don't even see the children, like at all. You don't even see them. You don't know where their classes are. You don't know where they are. It's just a school, and they're not letting you pass when you first come in. If you ask, oh, hey, I want to get such and such from school, you have to show your ID. The ID, they take a picture of you. It doesn't matter how many times you come in, they still take a photo of you. That way, and then they have cameras outside. So that way, when you go to get in your car, they know exactly what type of car you got off in, that you drove away in. They know all of that. I went in one day to get my nephew. I'm not on his emergency contact list. His principal was standing at the front. My mom was in the car and she said, go and get him. I walked in, I said, oh, I'm here to pick up such and such. And the lady looked at me and she was just like, may I have your ID? And I'm like, this lady ain't never asked my mama for her ID. I gave her my ID. She comes back and she's like, you're not on the emergency contact list and you're not on the pickup list. I said, oh, it's my nephew. She said, I understand that. So my mom blew the horn and the principal came out and she looked and she goes, oh, mommy, I'm sorry, but I was not going to let him go because I don't know him. I don't know him. That doesn't happen at these other schools.
But you just calculated it twofold. What TC's question was, the piece of community and community accountability, and then that piece of the policing. It's a close policing within those communities. And so people know who's moving and they know pretty much what family they're connected with when they're moving. Not just you're moving, but they know who you are connected with. So that was answered. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. You're welcome.
We are now at 54 minutes. And y'all know we wrap up before our hour.
Come on now.
This conversation has been gracious, I believe, to us all as we make these decisions in the movement. But we have to be accountable in the way that we feel like we need to be accountable when it comes to gun control, when it comes to reproductive justice, when it comes, those are all things right now that are really clear because it's still about choice. Whether it's gun control or it's reproductive justice, it's about choice. And if we feel like people are responsible enough that they should be able to move freely with weapons within this country, why is it not okay for women to make the decision of what they do with their body? I just want to lend that before we even exit this. But we thank you all for joining us in this sweet place called the chat with my two gracious friends on tonight. And I can't wait till the girl with pearls returns. And so we can keep it up. But you all will see her next week. And we look forward to you sharing this with your friends, families, and your community. Ask us some questions, give us some input, and we look forward, and we value you all.
Regina, get us out of here, girl.
Yeah, baby.